My name is Niran. I'm 82 years old, and I spent most of my life holding on so tightly that I thought the pain in my hands was proof of love, proof of discipline, proof of seriousness, proof that I was doing life the right way. I held on to people. I held on to old roles. I held on to my idea of who I was supposed to be. I held on to regret. I held on to shame. I held on to losses that had already happened. I held on to memories as if memory itself could keep life from changing. And because I held on so tightly, everything in life felt like struggle. Even small changes felt violent. Even normal endings felt like punishment. It took me many decades to understand something that now feels very clear. Life does not start working for you when you control it better. Life starts working for you when you stop fighting its nature. And that begins the moment you finally let go. I was not taught this as a boy. I was taught almost the opposite. I grew up in a village in northern Thailand where what little you had mattered deeply. Family mattered. Routine mattered. Safety mattered. Stability mattered. If something was valuable, you kept it close. If someone was important, you stayed loyal. If life gave you something solid, you held on to it. There was wisdom in some of that, but there was also fear. A fear of change, a fear of uncertainty, a fear of emptiness. And without knowing it, I carried that fear into every part of my life. When I entered the monastery as a young man, I thought I had stepped onto a path of release. And in one sense, I had. But old habits do not disappear when you put on a robe. I still clung. I clung to being seen as disciplined. I clung to the image of being a serious monk. I clung to my progress. I clung to moments of peace. I clung to the approval of teachers. I clung even to certain pains because they had become part of how I understood myself. You see, this is what most people don't realize. Attachment is not only about possessions. It is about identity. It is about form. It is about wanting things, people, and even states of mind to remain the way you prefer them. For many years, I confused holding on with love. If I gripped something tightly, I thought that meant it mattered. If I could not release a pain, I thought that meant the experience was important. If I kept replaying a loss, I thought that was loyalty. But this was not wisdom. It was fear dressed in noble language. It was my inability to trust life moving the way life moves. And because of that, I suffered not only from what happened, but from my refusal to allow it to be what it was. There was one loss in my life that changed this understanding more than anything else. A senior monk who had guided me for many years became ill and eventually died. I loved him deeply, not in the way people in the world often speak of love, but in the deep human way of someone whose presence helped shape your soul. When he became weak, something in me refused to accept it. I prayed, I sat, I watched, I hoped, but beneath all that there was resistance. I wanted life to make an exception. I wanted change to stop at the edge of my attachment. I wanted impermanence to be true for everyone except for what I was not ready to lose. And here's what I didn't understand then. My suffering was not only grief. My suffering was grief mixed with refusal. Refusal to let life be life. Refusal to let someone I loved move into another form of absence. Refusal to understand that love does not prevent endings. When he died, my pain was sharp. But what made it heavier than it had to be was the way I held on to it. I replayed every memory. I returned to old words. I imagined that if I let my pain soften, I would somehow be betraying him. I had turned grief into a sacred prison. You know what surprised me most? What I was really holding on to was not him. It was the form in which I had known him. It was the way I needed him to remain in order for me to feel safe. Love itself had not disappeared. Gratitude had not disappeared. What was gone was the shape I had become attached to. And once I saw that clearly, I also saw how much suffering comes from confusing the form of a thing with its essence. Let me explain. Letting go is not forgetting. It is not pretending something never mattered. It is not becoming cold. It is not refusing to feel. It is the willingness to stop trying to imprison life in the shape you prefer. It is saying yes to the truth that all things move, all things change, all things pass, and that love can remain true without becoming possession. When I began to understand that, grief changed. It did not disappear, but it softened. It breathed. It became less violent because I was no longer fighting the fact that reality had already changed. This understanding spread into other parts of my life too. I saw that I was holding on not only to people, but to who I thought I was. I did not want age to change me. I did not want younger monks to grow into roles that once belonged to me. I did not want to feel less strong, less needed, less central. Every time life shifted around me, I tightened. And every time I tightened, I suffered. It was not age itself that hurt me most. It was my insistence that I should remain as I had been. What most people don't realize is that life works against us most strongly when we force it to stay still. That is when everything feels like friction. We resist endings, resist aging, resist uncertainty, resist other people changing, resist ourselves changing. And in that resistance, life feels hard, unfair, almost hostile. But when the grip loosens, something else happens. Life still changes. People still leave. Bodies still age. But the war reduces. And where there is less war, there is more room for grace. There was a night in my late 70s when I sat alone outside the temple after sunset, thinking about all the things that had changed in my life. Teachers gone, strength gone, roles shifted, old certainties dissolved, younger men taking places I once held. I was not angry exactly, just tired of inner resistance. And in that tiredness I saw something with unusual clarity. Life had not been punishing me by changing. I had been punishing myself by demanding that change not happen. That realization was both painful and liberating. Painful because it showed me how much struggle I had added. Liberating because it meant I could stop. And this is where everything changed. I began to practice letting go not only in the large things, but in the small ones. Letting go of replaying yesterday's mistake. Letting go of needing someone to understand me perfectly. Letting go of needing every good moment to stay. Letting go of old shame that no longer taught me anything new. Letting go of proving who I was through old identities. Little by little, the hand opened. Little by little, the heart learned not to panic every time life moved. And here's the truth. Letting go does not make life empty. It makes it breathable. It gives space back to your nervous system. It allows gratitude to appear where clinging used to live. It allows tenderness to remain without turning into fear. It allows memory to become warm instead of painful. It allows the present moment to matter more than your demand for permanence. That is what I mean when I say life starts working for you. The world does not become easier because it obeys you. It becomes less painful because you stop fighting its deepest law. I still miss people. I still feel the ache of certain endings. I still remember with tenderness what is gone. Letting go did not erase any of that. It only removed the extra suffering created by my grip. It removed the argument. And once the argument softened, peace had room to enter again. If these words are helping you loosen something in your chest, maybe this is the right moment to stay close to this space. So many people are exhausted not by life itself, but by how tightly they are trying to hold what life has already begun to move. If that is touching something true in you, stay with me. At 82, I no longer believe life becomes kind because we hold on well. I believe life becomes bearable, meaningful, and strangely beautiful when we stop trying to trap it. That is the freedom I found late, not in control, but in release, not in force, but in trust. Tell me in the comments what you know deep down you need to let go of. A person, a role, a memory, a version of yourself, a pain you keep polishing because you think it proves something. Sometimes naming what you are gripping is the first step in opening the hand. And if this message gave you something real today, subscribe and leave a like so it can reach someone else whose heart is tired of fighting what life has already changed. Sometimes peace begins not when life finally obeys you, but when you stop demanding that it do so.